All right. Hey, welcome, guys. My name's Matt Cario. I am the discipleship pastor at Our Savior in Tacoma. And
I am Kerry Hoff. I'm the youth minister or the DCE out at Our Savior in Tacoma as well.
So we are, Kerry and I work together on our discipleship team. And we have kind of the joy to present today. I know Kerry's looking very forward to presenting. But we have a few things as we get started to know. One, we will be done in 40 minutes or less because it's Friday at a conference and you don't need to be in a session past 4:40. All right? We'll make sure that one happens. It is, and if you notice anything like off that we do, it's just like put it that we're from Washington and we don't know how to handle sun or like any of that stuff going on. But let's talk about like just current landscape and as far as what it looks like when it comes to keeping your team. It's something that's pretty hard, and it certainly takes effort. In many ways. But current landscape stuff, I mean, if you just ask the question, who hasn't wanted to quit in the last 2 years? Who hasn't wanted to quit this week? I mean, it is. I've thought about it multiple times. Man, what else could I do other than this? Ministry is hard right now. And I kind of describe it as there is nothing that's given. Like there's everything is earned. There's some seasons in ministry where you reap a bunch. Like stuff just kind of falls into place and works. And this is not that season that we're in. You look at stuff like, from PricewaterhouseCoopers, a poll they did was 65% of workers are looking for a new job as of this past summer. That is an abnormally high amount of people that are wondering, man, am I doing the right thing? And should I keep doing this? Anybody tried to hire someone in the last 2 years? Yeah, how's that going?
Great.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just looking at the synodical workers, so if you're looking at pastors, DCEs, teachers, principals, God help you if you're trying to hire a principal, especially, it is brutal. If you go back 20 years, like DCEs, synodical workers coming out were thankful to have a call. I mean, there's like celebrating that I have a place that would actually give me a chance to try this. Like they're insane. What are they thinking about hiring me? But, I mean, now, like an intern right now, they have 15 options of churches. They're saying, we need somebody in your role, and we would like to hire you in this. I mean, Kara, what have you seen with that? I mean, as you started looking around of just, how that shifted, what have you noticed?
Well, easiest thing to think about is when I think about all my peers and people I know, colleagues in ministry, the majority of them are actively looking to move their current situation and call, looking for proverbially something better or easier, or they have recently already made that change. They have only been in their place a year or less. And so it is, at least from my perspective, in the current season we find ourselves, it is not, a lot of people are thinking about, this has got to change. And so there's lots of movement, at least in what I see amongst DCEs and youth worker types in my world.
Yeah, we're going to get into some of that about, hey, how do we look at keeping our teams? Not simply just finding the next person, but retention really matters because when you always have that revolving door of, man, if in your mind you're just thinking, man, if we could just get this position filled, and if we could just get this position filled, like God could really do something incredible with all of this. And so filling those holes and building that continuity is really significant. And we know the cost to replace an employee is anywhere from 50 to 200% of the actual cost of the employee. That it's exceedingly expensive, not simply just in dollars, but in hours and stress and worries. And I suppose the prayer is not necessarily a cost, but it is something that weighs on you when you are looking to hire somebody. And so, when we start looking at that, I always think about bringing us back to kind of like what's that bottom line of our calling?
Yeah, I was spacing out a little bit based on what you were saying, Matt. It was making me think of the importance of longevity in ministry. And if we are always searching to fill that seat on the bus or to move someone out the door, someone else in, you don't have that ability or that inherent ability to build that longevity. And when you talk about ministry long-term across generations and lifetimes, that is what matters, and it is effective as opposed to the opposite. But you're absolutely right, Matt, about calling. And when it comes to our calling, obviously there are different ways to think about it. Ultimately, we're called to make disciples. Jesus made that clear. We're called to make disciples. Now, obviously, there are lots of ways to make disciples, and ultimately we're called in Jesus, but calling can also kind of be seasonal too, like, and depending on certain contexts. Like, I'm also called to be a husband, to be a brother, to be an employee, to be a boss, to be a minister, to be a mentor for youth, a leader of volunteers. And so all of these things fall under the umbrella of following Jesus and being called to that greater calling of making disciples. But that, I think, is, at least from in our world of church work, that calling to make disciples is the glue that holds all of this together. And without that, we're kind of just wasting our time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when I always think about, like, making disciples, it's a long process. It's, we kind of call it in our team, it's a long game. We're playing the long game on this. That we're looking at, how is God going to grow somebody over years? And it doesn't mean that growth can't happen like really quickly, but it takes time, and it's really difficult to make disciples in a year. It's really difficult to do it in just 2 years. That it's one of those, sometimes, you just look at it and you're like, man, feel a big picture. Like we say, like you get 2-3 generations maybe in your professional ministry?
Professional, effective, I suppose so. I was thinking more of, pre-COVID, the saying was always, well, it takes at least 5 years to get somebody established, build relationships, trust built up, to get to that season of ministry where you're maximizing your effectiveness. It's a joke at Our Savior. My wife and I, we were called there in 2019. So as many of you know, we had a year of regular, and then COVID hit, and everything changed up in Washington. And we've had 2 years of that now. So we've had more time in the pandemic situation than regular good old days. And it's a joke. We've had 3 first years in a row. Because it was the regular life, you're getting to meet people, know people, learn your new place. Boom, this hits, everyone's online. You hate computers for the first time in your life. And then the second year, we're in this weird limbo of, I really want to get back, but I'm hearing this, I'm hearing that, and it's been all different. And so getting to longevity and years and all of that, like, it takes time. And that was before COVID. And then you add this situation where we find ourselves in, and we wonder why we're struggling with just trying to get traction, trying to find the person, trying to gain and build that momentum in a ministry. I mean, we're all dealing with the effects of the situation of the world right now.
Yeah, and we just know, like, looking big picture, right? If we quit, we're out. And if our team quits, they're out. It doesn't mean like they can't make disciples any other time in their life, but collectively, what we're after, if we quit, we're out. So those who have been in ministry for a few years or more can attest that. So much of what they've seen God do can just boil down to, I didn't quit. I kept showing up. I let that one thing slide off my back. I forgave that person, and I didn't let that destroy what was conflicting me. I mean, these are hard. They're hard things. They're not simple, but we just got to remember with our team, like, if they quit, they're out. And I don't know about your team, but I know with our team that I need them. Like, I can't do their job. I can't do their job as well as they can do their job. You know, there's just things. I can look at Carrie in youth ministry and it's like, man, Carrie can do things that I just don't even begin to have the gifts for. You know, maybe I have an idea about it, but it's, you know, let alone the capacity to do any of it. And so we need one another very much. And so just that bottom line, man, if we got to make disciples, we got to stay focused on it. And so, but what we're going to do, we're going to shift to just some basic stuff, and it might not be revolutionary, but it does work. And so I like stuff that works. That's kind of the world I live in. I'm kind of a simpleton, and I stick with stuff that works rather than getting too fancy and tricky with it. But a few years ago, I went to a conference, and there's a guy named Dan Ryland there. I don't know if you've heard of this guy, but he's a executive pastor of a church called 12 Stones in Georgia. He's worked with John Maxwell and his Enjoy group before. And he said this phrase, he said, as long as we're talking, we always have time and options. And you know how you write stuff down at a conference and you maybe look at it later? Or, you know, maybe you filter it all and you're like, well, that sounds great, but I'm not going to use that. Or it's probably just, you know, a bunch of blabber that he doesn't know anything about. So, you know, I kind of put it in that category of like, oh, okay, that sounds really nice. Sounds good for a presentation. And kind of kept examining it, kind of coming back to it. And it was one of these phrases that was really helpful for me as a leader, of just understanding that, man, if we are talking, we do have time and options. Like, that matters so much with your team. Like,
I can attest to that, as to him really adopting this saying, because we say this most in our confirmation program to our confirmation students and parents. As long as we are talking, we have time and options, because confirmation is already an adventure. Let's just call it an adventure.
That's a good term. That's right. That's a nice term.
If you throw on the last couple of years and trying to do confirmation remotely or online or parent-led model, all different kinds of variations, we say this one the most. As long as we are talking between you guys and us, or you guys as a family and us, we have time and options.
Yeah, and it's, you know, with your team, it's so critical to be talking on the front end with them. Not just on the back end. Like, if there's a problem and you're just in the mode of like, man, I'll talk to you when something's blowing up. You are out of time and options. Like, you're in triage. You're putting out a fire. You're not moving forward. You are surviving in that sense. And this is one of those things that, man, if you keep people engaged in that, it really matters. A few years ago, I had a woman on my team that she was working in youth ministry, and you know, we had a good rapport of talking, and one of our talks said, "Hey, Matt, I'm ready to step out," which you never want to hear that. You're like, but you're good, and you do it, and I don't have to think about it ever, and that's so cool to not have to think about or obsess over that happening. I know you'll take care of it because you're an awesome leader. And so she and I, we talked about this over multiple months of just figuring this out. And it was really hard to let her go because frankly, it meant that it was coming back on my plate. It wasn't like there was someone waiting in the wings to just swoop in. And so it was coming back on my plate. And I told her, you know, we're going to keep talking with this. And we did all throughout. She had a great exit. She, you know, stayed member of our church. You know, they grew a family, and they've are continuing to do that. And this past year, she came back onto our team as working with our nursery. And it's just an example of, I mean, that could have been an easy situation to say, hey, I'm sorry, and just left it and stopped talking. All right, now I got to figure this out. And I'm moving forward without you, and I don't know what that means, but I got to move forward. But it came back around because life changes. Situations change with people. And so she became part of our team. We kept her in the game of making disciples, not just somewhere else, but as part of our church, part of our team, and it's been awesome. In fact, I can tell you right now, we have the best nursery coordinator around. Like, it's insane how good she is in that. That you know, it's one of those people. It's like they would never just say yes to a blind job opening about that. But because we kept that relationship going, God has continued to bless that, and it's really worked out. But this question is, who are you not talking with on your team? Is a big one. Are any of you guys task oriented? Task? Yeah? Okay, I'm a task guy. I'm pretty regimented. Right?
Yes.
Like I have like a
Is it on the mic?
Yeah, speak into the mic a little more. But I've got my rhythm, right? And I'll actually build it in my rhythm of, hey, I need to check in with people. And not because I want something, but hey, Carrie, how's it going? Carrie, what are you thinking about something that's not work? Carrie, when are you going to put bigger tires on your truck?
Oh my God.
Carrie, come on.
Oh, talking about things that don't matter?
Oh, come on.
Well, on this point, you got me thinking, because I think as people of who we are and roles we play, we can fall into the trap of thinking like our professional team, our paid staff, our ministry staff. But I really think this applies to volunteer teams as well. And I'm kind of sharing vulnerably maybe a short sighting of mine on my own volunteer team. Side story, just for a brief second, when COVID hit up in Washington, we had to completely change our youth ministry model from a large group gathering to life group, small group gathering. That was the only way that we could meet in person in Washington. But what that meant was I could not do it all. And I had to find volunteers. And now I manage a team of people to do this. And previously in my career as a DCE, that was not something I was inherently good at or I had experience in or skill in. But it's this very thing of managing people, whether you're paying them or not, or they're your volunteers, regularly checking in. Who are you not talking to? Who are you not touching base with? Because if that line, and we'll get to this, the line of communication is not open, then there's already primer for a disconnect or something to happen that can lead to down the road issues. And we're all about prevention of issues.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that it does is when you do have an issue, it makes it clear that, hey, you can come and we can talk about it.
Absolutely.
Before it's like critical. Before it's like, hey, if we don't get this done, like, we are SOL, like we are out of the game on this one.
Out of time and options.
Oh, wow, that's so good, Carrie. Boom. All right. This Gallup poll from 2019, totally revealing about this. 52% of voluntary exiting employees say their employers could have done something to prevent them from leaving. So 52% say, man, my employer could have done something to keep me from leaving. That's a huge, huge chunk of people. And if we have those people on our teams. That next line there, 51% say that in the 3 months before they left, neither their manager nor any other leader spoke with them about their job satisfaction or their future with the organization. That is a big gap. One of the things that it talks in there is it's not just about, hey, are you happy with your job? But what is the next step that you need help getting to? And maybe it's in our organization, and maybe it's not. But like, how can I help you get to this next step is so critical. I mean, it is critical because what you'll find, not everybody's going to stay with your organization, but some people are going to. And they're going to become leaders in greater capacities that haven't even been developed yet. Because you don't even know you need them. It's not even on the radar that this is the type of person you need here. It's organic. It's being developed. And man, when I see something like that, I'm like, man, that is no good to to leave a place like that. Because here's what happens if you're on the flip side of that as the employee, perhaps you've been on that side as well. I've been on that side and experienced this where, there wasn't any talking, there wasn't any, discussions about, hey, how can I help you grow? How can I help you get beyond the ceiling you feel like you're at in this role? What ends up happening is you start having the right discussions with the wrong people. Because you're frustrated, you don't see a way out other than leaving, and the frustration isn't going to come out with the people you need to have the conversation with. And if you're not having conversations with your team regularly, individually, about things not just their job performance, they are going to have those conversations.
Ask you something?
Yeah.
You have those conversations with
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you would be on an island here.
Yeah.
Sounds all good, but you got to have somebody talking to you.
Exactly. No, you're so right. It is. I mean, it is this constant thing of like, hey, how are we doing?
Yeah.
Knowing like, hey, you are. I mean, there's assurance with it of, look, you are not getting fired based on this conversation. Okay.
That's another inside joke. He knows I'm a 6 on the Enneagram. Question everything. So we'll get there.
But I mean, like, that stuff does matter, right? Like, just knowing I'm with you, and we're doing this together. It's not just you're on your own, go figure it out, Carrie. But it's, hey, I'm cheering. I'm not going to do everything for you, but I'm with you on that.
Absolutely.
Is a big deal there. All right, let's talk about the strengths, weaknesses, and being known.
Yeah. So when it comes to strengths and weaknesses, rhythms, and all of this, I think we fall into the trap of thinking in it on single planes, where it's good for us to know our strengths and weaknesses and consider that kind of a starting point. But do you know your team's strengths and weaknesses and rhythms? Kind of like what you were just alluding to. But then even a third plane of, does your team know that you know those things about them? Again, does your team know that you know their strengths, their weaknesses, and their rhythms? Because when that is at play, when that is a reality, it completely changes the dynamic. If you can know your own strengths and weaknesses, okay, I'm good at admin work, I'm not good with this, like you can kind of do this, but when your teammate, your supervisor, your coach, or whatever knows this about you, they can kind of walk you along. But when I know he knows, he's that much more in my corner. He's looking out for my success. He's looking to set me up with wins. He's looking to protect me from things I need to avoid, and not that he removes all potential for failure, because we know that we learn sometimes the best through failure, but that he really does have my best interest in mind. And my success is also the success of the organization and the success of the ministry that we're a part of. And so it goes multiple ways. It's not just, I need to know about myself, but you as a leader of teams, whether they're paid employees or volunteers, do you know their skills, weaknesses, and abilities, and do you communicate that to them? Where, hey, I see that you're really good at this. I want to give you props for that. Or I see this is a growth area that we can work on together. When that conversation, that communication is there, the potential for success grows exponentially.
Yeah, I like the part about it being known is really significant. Mm-hmm. Like, and knowing that they know. Because sometimes you can get in that boat of, well, I don't know if they really know that I'm not good at this, and I feel like that would be disappointing to them, and I'm going to just kind of fake that one, and hopefully nobody says anything. But if nobody says anything ever, then it just kind of keeps going, and it's not good with that. So we've really pressed in on some of this, some of these questions here about, and these are questions asking your team, and they're pretty brutal. Like, just what do you see that I need to grow in? That's a pretty vulnerable question with your team to ask. These are hard questions. What's it like being on the other side of me? What's my demeanor like? How's my attitude? What are ways that you see that I'm struggling? They're hard questions to ask, but they're really informative, and it's from an employee side. Man, I think what an honor to have your supervisor ask you something like that.
And I can tell you, being on the other side of Matt here, that it is an honor. It's also a little bit intimidating when your boss says, "All right, tell me, what do I need to grow in? What am I weak in? Is it really this awesome to work with you?"
Yeah.
Yeah. All the basics. But if we can get over that initial fear, intimidation, whatever. Again, it's so important to have these conversations, and I can tell you that we as a team, and between the two of us, we've had these conversations, and I already have permission to share a little bit, and it's nothing bad anyway, so I'm going to. But we've had these conversations where Matt has asked me, and our team that works in discipleship, specifically in our ministry area, what are things I need to grow in? What are some blind spots I have? And what is it really like to work with me? And so, I thought about it myself. We kind of talked as a team together without Matt, just to make sure we weren't like being all in one area and all this stuff. But we had real conversations of, Matt, when you get stressed, your way of handling things and mode of working drastically changes. Mm-hmm. We know he is stressed and that he is working on goals because he likes being task-oriented when his office door closes. And it doesn't mean that you can't come talk to Matt. It just means like he is getting stuff done because there's stuff that needs to get done. Another thing that I've shared with Matt also is when it comes to certain tasks, he's really good about staying at that higher level thinking and moving through them. And I am much more of a detail, logistics, specific oriented type thinker, so much so that to my detriment, sometimes I get logged into the weeds. But when he would communicate something and he has in his brain how something is going to go and the expectations he has, sometimes I would be left over here thinking, okay, I know this is the finish line, but it feels like he doesn't care how I got there. And as long as we got to the finish line, it's a win. And so communicating that to him, hey, I need you to communicate in a way that if you care or if you have an opinion on these specific details, I need to know them. That way my expectations are managed and I can be set up for success to achieve those goals in the way that we agree that would be the win. But those are just a couple of real life examples to prove that we're not just saying these things, that we on our team actually strive, not perfectly, but strive to live these out.
Yeah. We've used the Enneagram just within our team. Mm-hmm. It's really helpful for discovery. I think it doesn't fix everything, but kind of getting behind some motivations behind why you do some of the things you do, or what some of those things mean. It's not foolproof, but we spent like half a day doing that, and that was really helpful to be like, oh, I didn't realize that. I mean, like stuff like figuring out, Carrie's a 6, I'm a 3, which is why hey, here's the goal. I don't care how you get there, but just get it done.
Is everyone here familiar with the Enneagram? Do you at least know it's a personality? Okay, just checking. Okay. It's a personality assessment. It assigns you to a number, which is a type of personality. And so there's lots of reading on all of that, but you can check that out. But that's what we're referring to here. Yeah.
The Enneagram Institute has some great stuff on like how do you mesh with others, like your work styles, like that stuff. I mean, we've read through that stuff quite a bit on our team, and it's like, oh, okay. So like I know for Carrie, like if there's something that I want him to work on and do, he's not going to be set up for success if I drop it on him 48 hours before it needs to be done. Like that does not excite him. Not in positive ways, at least. He'll be excited, but it'll be a different type of excitement. But knowing like, hey, if I can put this 2 weeks out and be prepared in that way, no problem. Like it's just that helping not just understand one another, but the knowing that you know about them and that they know about, you know that they know, just is critical. It keeps you on that same page, and it really, really helps with that.
I think it also touches on this greater need to be known and to feel belonging. We talk about this in the greater scope of faith in general, but I think being on a team as well, that matters. Like, who wants to be on a team where people don't know about you? Who wants to be on a team where you feel like you don't belong? And these steps of understanding your strengths and weaknesses in your team and your boss knowing this, or your volunteer supervisor knowing this about you, helps solidify this feeling of belonging and knownness that just pushes everything along further.
Yeah. Now, one quick warning before we get to the next thing. If you do this, you cannot weaponize this.
Also true.
Seriously, you cannot weaponize it on your team and use it against them. It's not just is that mean and cruel, but that destroys culture. And so you can't be passive aggressive about it. And use it against them in that way. I mean, you're a team. You work together, and is somebody the right person on the bus? That's a different question. But if they're on your bus and you've chosen them, then you got to figure that stuff out, and you got to be gentle with this, because these are personal things. These are connected to our identity. They influence the way we think and feel and operate about ourselves and our health. And so, man, it's super significant with that.
Yeah, if you've ever read further than the first 3 pages about your printout, it can tell you when you're thriving, you look like this. But when you're not doing so good, you look like this. And then you think, oh gosh, how am I doing? Oh, would I really do that? And you just get into some weird place. I'm a 6. Maybe it's just me.
You think about it a lot more than I do.
Weird places. And then you add the fact, oh, they know that about me? They just read it together over lunch in a half-day meeting? It makes you very vulnerable, and that's why we say you have to protect that for the members of your team. It's not meant to be a weapon, but rather a supportive, uplifting thing instead.
Yeah. It really helps you be graceful to one another, and specifically, I know how I need to be graceful with you in that way. All right.
So that brings us to our next kind of line of thinking here. Meet them instead of dragging them to where you are. And so, obviously, as leaders, whether it be of staff or of volunteers, we oftentimes can have this vision of where ministry is going, where God is taking us. And if we leave the people in the dust behind us who are following, then it's only us out there. And so rather than being dragging your teams, inviting them along, and even more so, meeting them where they are and walking with them, journeying them to the end goal, to the win, to the journey. And that's part of your job is defining the performance goals, and most of it walking alongside of them. So just, again, supporting your team, being good about managing expectations and defining wins, like we said, helps your team, and walking alongside them and connecting them to the big picture. Establishing the purpose in the task or the goals they're trying to achieve. As monotonous or everyday as it may seem, this is one of the things I do with my volunteers in youth ministry. As dumb as it sounds to be the door person and say hi to everyone coming in, the greater purpose, one of the greater purposes actually, is every kid was spoken to by an adult, right? And so there's greater purposes in addition to just the task at hand. And this is true on a volunteer level or an employee level of, you may not like writing up this report or writing or doing this ministry this way, but this is the purpose behind it. This is the impact for the kingdom is super important.
Yeah, one of the lines we talk about is that I love to be efficient. Efficiency is just one of my love languages. And It's a real one. It exists, I'm sure.
It's number 6.
Yeah, it's a 6th love language. Chavin's going to come out really soon. He's working on it. But ultimately, I mean, walking alongside a person is always the most efficient strategy. You are going to you're going to deal with the people one way or another. You can put it off today or this week, but you're going to deal with them. They might have a different attitude when you deal with them next. But you're not. The time is committed. Like, it's there. You can't run away from it. And that was one of those things, man. I really wrestled with that as I was, learning how to work and just figuring out, man, like, I am not going to win by not winning with people in this way or trying to short a person on this side. I've got to, even when I know a task needs to get done, I need to care about the person on my team and lead them with me. I think you're better at this than I am. Your teams love you.
Well, I love my teams because as you guys know, my team, your volunteers are the people that make ministry possible because we cannot do it ourselves. And like you said, doing the people part is essential because, and we should know this, but if you're like me, I can't say anything about yourself. I can only talk about myself. But if you're like me, it's too easy to think, I have all of this on my plate. I've got to get all of this done. And if only I could dedicate more time to that, then I won't be so stressed. But if you ever do that to the cost of time with people, for me, time with students, parents, volunteers, congregation members, there's a cost to that. But walking with someone through the journey is always more effective than putting it off and dealing with it in a triage situation. And this reminds me, we've probably, and so looking at this, meeting them instead of dragging them to where you are, we've all probably either been in a situation or have known people in situations where this was not executed well, where you've been in a season of ministry or a place where, man, they really are just kind of dragging me around. I don't really know what the win is. I don't know what the goal is or what would be successful by their terms. And so we've all maybe felt that way at times or have known people in those situations, and you're hopefully speaking truth and love to them as well. But we've all been at places, or potentially been at places. I've been at places where this was done poorly, where goals were not communicated, wins were not identified. It just felt being yanked around. And sometimes that's a short season, sometimes that's a long season, but it's not a fun season.
Yeah,
I can tell you that. And I don't want to talk negatively too much about them, but having experienced that and then experiencing something better, something healthier, is so uplifting and life-giving.
Yeah.
Just to be a part of a team where you are not drug around, but you are journeyed with in this ministry journey, I think is so important.
Yeah, well, and on the supervisor side, like, so much of that is just being clear about what it is that we're really after and sticking with it. Like, if you're a dreamer, like, this is your Achilles heel. Like, because you love ideas and you think about a new ministry that you want to start every week. And you're excited about it. And so others around you are like, yeah, I want to be excited about something, but pick what it is and stick with it is critical with it. Finally, be generous, specific with empathy, grace, and acknowledgement. Patrick Lencioni has amazing stuff on this. The Advantage is a great book if you've not read it. But when leaders fail to tell their employees that they're doing a great job, they might as well be taking money out of their own pockets and throwing it into a fire. You can very much acknowledge somebody, you can very much care for them, you can encourage them and not fix them. So that's a different meeting. That might be where you need to set up some performance goals and things of that matter that are separate, or how do we set up an improvement plan with this? That's a different meeting. But you can encourage, and you can hear them say, man, I'm struggling with this, and say, that's hard, and I'm praying for you. And let me know how I can be supportive. You don't have to fix it. It's not your job to fix it all the time. You can, sometimes 70% is 100% of what they can do. So, like, I've experienced this from, we've had a stressful week, and I want something done, like something achieved, but our team doesn't have the capacity to do it. And I just have to suck it up and not let the goal go a little bit and say, you know what, let's get some rest and let's come back next week and we'll start working at that. And that's my fault as a supervisor for setting a goal that's unrealistic and not being aware of where my team's at or what their capacity is in that. Carrie, you talked about describing greater purpose, small and mundane efforts. Find something to love about somebody. That's a big one. Even if they're not that much fun and they're not that much lovable and they're grumpy and whatever, find something to love about them. Find something redeeming about them. If you can't find anything, that's a different conversation about maybe we need to find out what the next step is for them outside of your organization in that way. But something that can happen with that is the weak link syndrome, that there's always somebody that's the problem. And if you've got that on your team where, hey, we had a great team except this one person, and that's the weak link, that is a culture issue. That is not a person issue. So that is, you can get rid of that person. That's not going away. That conversation is going to keep going. It'll just find a new target in your organization with that. Finally, big things with be extravagantly generous. There is nothing that I've ever been generous in with one of my team that I've regretted. I've definitely regretted not being generous and being stingy. Even if it seems like that is way too much, that's more than I want to give. I've never regretted being generous in that, and you will never regret that. You will definitely find regret, though, on the other side of, man, I made that decision in the moment. I was really upset about it and hurt by it, and come back to, man, that was wrong. That was messed up, and I should not have done that. That's what we have. We don't have all the answers, but this is just some of our experience with it. And dang it, it's 4:42.
Oh man!
But thank you guys for coming.